Hello everyone and welcome back to American Literature class, summer 2020. This is class 13. We are supposed to continue discussing Mark Twain's masterpiece Huckleberry Finn, but it is useful to have a look at Tom Sawyer, which is another novel by the same writer, and both it complements Huckleberry Finn, and it is about Huckleberry Finn's best friend, whose name is Tom Sawyer. Okay, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Let us give or offer a background knowledge about this boy. He is Huckleberry Finn's best friend and idol. Idol is the most admired person to somebody. There are differences between both. We will come to them in the course of the analysis of Huckleberry Finn as a novel. We first make his acquaintance in the beginning of the novel when Tom organizes a group of robbers known as Tom Sawyer's Gang. So he is a leader who forms a gang of boys, robbers, thieves who wants to rob things. His mind is full of fantasy. He wants to be a gangster, okay? Believing that a gangster is a form of a hero in the society, okay? Indeed, the young Tom demonstrates leadership skills and a familiarity with adventure stories in his complex organization of the gang. How come a boy is sophisticated enough to form a gang and to have them offer their oaths on blood? We'll come to this. Of a gang which requires a pledge. A pledge means an oath. Obligation, expression of obligation from each member to write his name in blood, to wound themselves by a blade and take some blood and to write their names by blood. After this episode, Tom drops out of the story until he reappears at Phelps' farm and participates in the rescue of Jim. So Mark Twain makes him disappear in Huckleberry Finn, and he only appears again when Jim is to be freed. This is Tom Sawyer in Huckleberry Finn. But it is good to have a look at the book itself on him. You know Mark Twain already, but let us tap into certain elements I want you to know. That he was born in Florida, Missouri, in the Midwest, and his father died of pneumonia, okay? We talked about his family moving when he was 4 years old, okay? And I always advise my students to study American literature with the United States map in front of them in order to locate the events. You know, setting is very important element of a novel, okay? Setting, you talk about time and space. Without being able to locate the social, the topographic movement of characters, then it is uneasy for you to pinpoint the types of relation that dominate the society, okay? Missouri is here in the middle, and you can see that it is in the depth of the Midwest in America. And it is bordered by Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Indiana. Okay? Where is Hannibal? Hannibal is in Missouri as well, and it is very close to St. Louis. St. Louis is the main city of Missouri, bordering, and here is the Mississippi River. Okay, running all the way. His father died of pneumonia when he was 12. At 13, Samuel left school to become a printer's apprentice, a boy working with a printer. After 2 short years, he joined his brother Orion's newspaper as printer and editorial assistant. It was here that young Samuel found he enjoyed writing. Hannibal is a place, the small place in Missouri. At 17, he left Hannibal behind for a printer's job in St. Louis. Yeah, he moved from a small place to a bigger place, St. Louis. While in St. Louis, Clemens became river pilot's apprentice. He worked on the river. He became a licensed river pilot in 1858. Clemens' pseudonym Mark Twain comes from his days as a river pilot. It is a river term which means 2 fathoms or 12 feet when the depth of water for a boat is being sounded. Yeah, Mark Twain means it is safe to navigate. Mark Twain means go. Okay, it is safe to travel, to navigate. Milaha. Because the river trade was brought to a standstill by the Civil War in 1861, so you can detect from this that Mark Twain lived the Civil War between the South and the North, and these middle states were caught in between. Okay? Clemens began working as a newspaper reporter. So it is by virtue of the Civil War that Mark Twain resorted totally to writing. An ordeal that ended up as a merit, and it ended up in his favor. Had he not witnessed the Civil War, okay, he would have been a pilot for all his life without producing any of these masterpieces he did produce later on because of the movement, because he moved. In 18, Clemens married Olivia Langdon, and they had 4 children, 1 of whom died in infancy and 2 who died in their 20s. This is another family ordeal. Okay? Yeah, this book is very good, The Jumping Frog. It was written by him, and in fact, it gave him fame. Okay? It was published in New York Saturday Press on November 18, 1865. We remember that we've talked about The Innocents Abroad, in which he portrays his travels in the Middle East, Greece, Italy, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine. Okay? And he has sharp remarks and bright remarks and bad remarks about the places and the people wherever he traveled. Okay? Now, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer was published in 1876. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn was published in 1885. So, Tom Sawyer's Adventures, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, was published 9 years or 11 years before Huckleberry Finn. He wrote, Mark Twain, 28 books and numerous short stories, letters, and sketches. The book, Tom Sawyer, took place in 1830 to 1840. These are the times where the Romantic movement was leaving the scene or departing in order to leave the floor for realism, which was led by Mark Twain. What significant event came after this time period, 20 years? It is the Civil War. So, he wrote it after the Civil War ended, but it depicts an era that precedes the Civil War. So he looked at the Civil War retrospectively, okay? Or the times that prepared the nation for the Civil War retrospectively. Yeah, this is a term, antebellum mean, ante before bellum war. In the years before the Civil War, Missouri and other southern states allowed slavery. Now look, slavery is a main topic in Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Enslaved African Americans were a common sight in Mark Twain's boyhood home of Hannibal. Yeah, he would see them. He would see how they are whipped, flagellated, hit, punished for small mistakes. However, even though many people in Missouri were immigrants from southern states and supporters of slavery, many others opposed it. You know the division between the South and the North regarding slavery. The North supporting abolitionism, the South supporting keeping slavery. Missourians' mixed feelings about slavery prevented the state from joining other slaveholding states in the Confederacy. Confederacy is the group of states that stood against the federal government in Washington led by Abraham Lincoln. So in the Civil War in America, the country was divided between two sections, the Federalists and the Confederates, okay? The federal government led by the President Abraham Lincoln and the Confederacy that was taking place in the South, and made Missouri a battleground during the Civil War. Now, Missourians' mixed feelings about slavery prevented the state from joining other slave-holding states in the Confederacy. So, they didn't join. They didn't join the Confederacy, and made Missouri a battleground during the Civil War. Yeah. Now, dialect is dominant in Mark Twain's work, and we have mentioned this before. Mark Twain wanted to have real people talk. Most of his characters are like real people coming from real life, discussing trivial matters, okay? What is dialect? A particular form of a language that is peculiar to a specific region or social group. In America, there is, like anywhere else, there are like these wars, as it were, wars of dialects. Whenever you pronounce a word different from your surrounding or environment, then you are considered something they don't like, or etc., or a source of ridicule, of mockery, etc., etc. Language, some language in the book is not appropriate for modern day audiences. It was not really appropriate then either, but it was more commonly used. Notice that when Mark Twain wrote his Huckleberry Finn, it was prevented from certain library shelves. Yeah, some libraries declined to leave the book set on its shelves, okay? At no time should I hear anyone using this language in our or out of class. Yeah. Imagine Winston-Salem in the 1800s. Do you think your life would be the same? We will come to this. Now, I will stop here because in the next class we are going to get back to Mark Twain. I'll offer these for you, Bloom's Guides, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. This is the main source of interpretation and analysis for us. It offers a summary and it gives some information about the characters. It is an enlightening material for you about the novel. If you want to go deeper in interpretation and understanding Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, you can go for Harold Bloom's book here, which is under the title The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and the umbrella title is Interpretations. The topic that are discussed here: Realism of Huckleberry Finn by Tom Quirke, Life Without Father, the role of the paternal in the opening chapters of Huckleberry Finn, Huck and Jim on the Mississippi, Going with the Flow. Did they go with the flow? Which flow? The flow of the Mississippi or the social flow? Huck, Jim, and the Black and White Fallacy. Fallacy is a literary term. I want you to go and check. Fallacy. 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 Okay. Huckleberry Finn and the Problem of Freedom. Deadpan Huck, or What's Funny About Interpretation. Who Shot Tom Sawyer? Huckleberry Finn and Twain's Democratic Art of Writing. Yeah, what pops in your mind here is the way Mark Twain made his characters speak vernacular. Vernacular is the colloquial language of people. The Raftsman Passage, Huck's Crisis of Whiteness and Huckleberry Finn in U.S. Literary History. Yeah, this is a very good chapter. Reinventing the World and Reinventing the Self in Huckleberry Finn. How did Mark Twain really reinvent the world and reinvent the self? The Night We Had Our Show, Twain and Audience, Floating Capital, The Trouble with Whiteness on Twain's Mississippi. These are the titles of sections or chapters in the book edited by Harold Bloom, the American famous critic. Okay, I will stop here, and next time we are going to do the summary of Mark Twain himself, of Huckleberry Finn, and we will make an overview of the characters, and then afterwards we are going to go to the analysis of certain sections of the book. Now I will move to the book itself. Luckily, I was thinking of Huckleberry Finn and being difficult for you in terms of language, in terms of time, in terms of geography. It is a book written nearly 1 century and a half before, and it was so local. Even if an English person read Huckleberry Finn at the time, he would find it difficult. Okay, so luckily I found this, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, with the meanings of the words offered. Yeah, thesaurus here. For example, you have chapter 1, you have the words, and this can give you a flavor of how language functioned at the time. A piece, each, one by one, cave, lair, okay, hole, grotto, dismal, cheerless, okay, dollars, bread. Yeah, look at dollars, you can think of them as money, but here it is bread, okay. Piled, heaped, rags, refuse, stretched, extended, stiff, tight, tense, stretched out, strained, expanded, elongated. Widow, women, relect, widower. Yeah, each page has thesaurus: crammed, limited, frigidity, nervous, goggles, eyeglasses. Nowadays goggles are used to swimming. Okay, I'll leave this for you on Moodle, and I leave it in the library if you want to have it printed out. But now I will go for the discussion of the the discussion of the characters, and my source is Bloom's guide. Okay. Let us now go in details. Huckleberry Finn is a 13 or 14-year-old, so he is very small, son of the town drunkard Pab Finn. His father is called Pab Finn, and he is drunkard. Yeah, he's totally corrupt in terms of being drinking all the time. And Pab Finn will chase his son when he knows that he has money and he's rich. He will come to him asking for money, abandoning his parental duties and looking for loots or taking the money of his own son, saying to him, everybody is saying that you are rich, give me the money. Huckleberry Finn is the friend of Tom Sawyer. We've mentioned before that Tom Sawyer is the best friend and the idol of Huckleberry Finn. Like Jim. Who's Jim? The escaped slave. Jim was a slave to Miss Watson, the cranky sister of Widow Douglas. Cranky means she is like fussy, like moody. We'll come to her. So this is why Jim escapes. Huck is superstitious. Superstitious, he believes in superstition. He believes in the unseen. He believes in envy. He believes in certain mythologies about life. So he's innocent. He's ignorant. He doesn't go to school. He's not illuminated about life. And he believes in such things as witches and the sinister omen of spiders. If he sees a spider crawling, okay, he will interpret it in a mythological fashion that is frightening on his shoulder. Listen to him saying, I got up and turned around in my tracks 3 times and crossed my breast every time, and then I tied up a little lock of my hair. He took a hair and he tied it, okay, with a thread to keep the witches away. Eventually, Huck shows himself to be a true hero when he helps Jim escape his enslavement at the Phelps farm. Notice that a boy who is superstitious, but his heart is pure. Okay? Remember that Huckleberry Finn is a battle between sound heart and deformed conscience. And who sustains defeat at the end? I leave it for you. We've did this before. We have done this before. The answer, I mean. Eventually, Huck shows himself to be a true hero when he helps Jim escape his enslavement at the Phelps farm, a rescue mission made possible through Huck's and Tom's disguising of themselves. They changed their visage. But despite his rebellious nature and the fact that the adult world is unreliable at best. Now look how Mark Twain made Huckleberry Finn a symbol of innocence against the adult's world that is already defined by experience. Okay? Huck nevertheless demonstrates a maturity. Yeah, he is a boy, but at certain points he proves to be a mature, he proves to be a grown-up. Maturity and responsibility beyond his years. He acted responsibly in several instances and made all the more poignant in that he never learned right from wrong. It is his heart that told him to do and not to do things, but instead acts according to what instinctively heart feels is the right way. This is Huckleberry Finn, an innocent boy, mature at certain times and boyish at certain others. He deceives, he lies, he tells white lies, But again, in his depth, he is very good, and he is at odds with the social rules of his society. Okay? Papfin is the corrupt and drunken 50-year-old father of Huck. He is uneducated, immoral, and prone to violence. He is audacious and will go to any absurd length to get what he wants. Yeah. Although he is totally unaware of his outrageous character. When he is murdered, Jim finds the body floating down the river, but decides to wait a long time before giving Huck the news. So, Papfin appears intermittently in the novel. He does not form a big thing. Yeah, Mark Twain just made him appear several instances and then he gets murdered. He's corrupt, he's bad, he drinks a lot, and he sues and take people to the court in order to take the money because he believed that Huckleberry Finn must be in his custody. And we'll come to this contradiction in his personality. Tom Sawyer is Huckleberry Finn's best friend and idol. We first make his acquaintance, we first meet him, we know him in the beginning of the novel when Tom organizes a group of robbers known as Tom Sawyers. We've done this before, okay? In the beginning of the class. Now Jim is Miss Watson's Negro slave. He is very gullible and calls upon a variety of superstitions and folkloric remedies when in a difficult bend. In the beginning of the narrative, Tom and Huck, while hiding, trick Jim into thinking that witches have flown his body around the state and have hung his hat on a limb as proof that they were there. Yeah, he believes in superstition and he was taken aback by this. His response is to consult his hairball oracle, which was as big as your fist, which had been took out. Look at the mistake here. Of the fourth stomach of an ox, and he used to do magic with it. Later on in the story, when Jim learns that his owner plans to sell him down the river, and by the way, sell somebody down the river is a term or an idiom used to say that somebody is fed up with his slave and he wants or she wants to sell him to other people without taking into consideration his services or the catastrophe that results from selling, separating the father from the mother, from the kids, it was a painful episode of a slave to be sold down the river. Okay, he escapes with Huck. When he knows that he is going to be sold down the river, he escapes with Huck, hoping to eventually make it up the Ohio River and thereby gain his freedom. When Jim is sold to Silas Phelps, Huck is instrumental in rescuing him. He is very important in the rescue mission. Always endearing Jim not only depends on Huck and Tom for protection, but also displays parental feelings for the two boys. Yes, he's bigger than them, he's married, he is at certain times led by them, but at certain other times he acts like a parent for them. He called us honey and all the pet names he could think of. Ironically, Jim had already been freed much earlier by Miss Watson on her deathbed, although he only learns of this later on. Yeah, this is something interesting. So he was trying to escape while in her will, Miss Watson freed him. Widow Douglas is a main character in the novel. She is the well-intentioned widow of Judge Douglas, who adopts Tom and tries to be a stabilizing influence in his life. Judge Thatcher is the distinguished judge who safeguards Huck's $6,000 so that Pap cannot lay claim to it. Later on, Huck and Tom each ask for $800 from their accounts in order to buy Jim from the Duke and the King. Duke is a 34-year-old printer who claims to be the heir of his great-great-grandfather, the Duke of Bridgewater, and Jim and Huck indulge his game by calling him Your Grace. Indeed, the Duke further claims to be both Dr. Armand de Montalban, the phrenologist, and the Shakespearean actor David Carrick. Duke and King are both together, but I shall stop here and then continue later on with characters. Yeah, we'll talk about this later. Okay, thank you for now. See you in the next class then. Bye bye.